In Acts 17:6, the unpersuaded Jews of Thessalonica cried out, "These men who have turned the world upside down have come here too." Let's unpack this for a Mississippi Gospel Minute. First, who were these men? A quick look back at the previous chapters will reveal that the answer was Paul and Silas. Paul probably does not need much of an introduction to you, but who was Silas, his mission partner? He was one of the two faithful men who the church at Jerusalem had chosen to send to Antioch with Paul and Barnabas, Acts chapter 15 and verse 22. Silas was a prophet, Acts chapter 15 and verse 32, which in the context seems to point to him being one who forthtells instead of foretells, but it is possible that he had the capability to do both. After the disagreement between Paul and Barnabas over John Mark in the latter part of chapter 15, Paul chose to take Silas with him on his next journey. That journey is what we now know as Paul's second missionary journey. There were others, of course, who traveled with Paul and Silas, including the beloved physician Luke, who just happened to write about the whole thing later. Second, how had they turned the world upside down? You know, that seems like an awfully amazing feat for such a small group of men, but that was the accusation against Paul, Silas, and company. Was it true? Actually, it was. And that was a very good thing. For 20 or so years before this event, ambassadors of the kingdom of Christ had been going throughout the known world preaching Jesus. People in Jerusalem, then Judea, then Samaria, and finally everywhere else had heard about the coming of the prophesied Messiah and how he had been crucified, buried, and then resurrected. The very God of heaven had sent his Son to be the atonement for the sin of all mankind. A new kingdom that could not and would not ever be destroyed had begun in Jerusalem very shortly after that. Folks, that kind of news ought to turn the world upside down, and it did. People were leaving Judaism. They were leaving pantheism and atheism. The problem with all of this is that it upset power, and it cost some people some ill-gotten gains. You see, there were those Jews who ruled over the other Jews that stood to lose their comfortable positions in life if this really was the anticipated chosen one of Israel. I'm convinced that many, if not most of them, knew very well that there was no way that Jesus was anyone other than the very Son of God that he claimed to be. The prophecies pointed directly to him. The miracles he performed could only have been from God. The way that Jesus taught was different and greater than any mere man. The fact that he did not act as other men and lash out when they attacked him should have clued them in as to who he was. Men who stand to lose power, influence, or money tend to lash out in irrational ways. That's why Jesus was crucified, although it was a foreordained and integral part of God's great scheme of redemption. It's why the troublemakers in Thessalonica wanted Paul and Silas and their fellow believers out of the way. It's also why there are so many who want to quash Christianity in present times. Finally, what about they have come here too? It is quite evident that these Jews knew all about Jesus Christ and that group of people who followed him. Is it possible that they were trying to keep the movement out of Thessalonica? It sure seems that way. But there Paul, Silas, and company were, teaching the way that had the power to change hearts and save souls. The passage even tells us that Paul had reasoned in the synagogue from the scriptures for 3 straight Sabbath days, explaining and demonstrating that Jesus indeed was the Christ. What wonderful audacity these men had. It's unpacked, but what can we learn from it? The gospel of Jesus Christ has the power to turn the world upside down. It's already happened once, and we need to use that power to turn the world upside down again. There will be resistance, and it will be strong at times. Never mind that. Be thou faithful unto death, Revelation chapter 2, verse 10 in the latter half. Yeah, even if it costs us everything, including our life. We cannot use that power to turn the world upside down unless we go. Paul and Silas were simply keeping the great commission of Jesus. Go ye therefore and teach all nations. There are those of us who are ready to go and turn the world upside down. Will you either join us or send us? We need your financial support and your prayers, just like Paul and Silas needed them from the saints in Jerusalem, Antioch, and the other churches. If you would like more information about us, please go to our website, thegospelplan.com. There's also information there on how to support us in our work. Thank you, and may God richly bless you. This has been the Mississippi Gospel Minute.